Hare Krishna, everybody. Welcome back after 2 weeks.
Hare Krishna Prabhu, Dandavat Pranam.
Hare Krishna Prabhu.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. Nice to hear you all. Looks like it's, as the weeks are progressing, less and less people are here. Anyway, we are going to finish it by end of May. Even with that one last week, 29 of May should be the last session if we don't miss other. Otherwise, we can always add some extra day. So let me quickly summarize what we did 2 weeks ago. So we all heard, not in the last class, but in the class previous, how Narada instructed King Chitraketu and gave him a mantra, special mantra that Chitraketu chanted for 1 week. And in that 1 week, he attained rulership over the Vidyadhara planet, which is described as the side effect of his devotional service. Material opulence is never the goal of devotional service, and sometimes, if required, it is given by the Lord, but in many cases, it's not even given. But it can be a side effect of bhakti, as also in other yoga processes, we see that sometimes yogi is offered different sort of mystic cities. So in this case, Chitraketu, he got the rulership of the other planet, but still it could not distract him, and he attained the darshan of Lord Sankarshan, and then he offered him very nice prayers from 25 to this present shloka. He offered very nice prayers, glorifying the Lord together with his devotees, because the Lord is never alone. He is always accompanied with his devotees. So Chitraketu is glorifying Lord together with the devotees. And this is the proper glorification. Not to glorify only the Lord, but the Lord and his devotees. And then he extols the position of devotional service and worship of Krishna or Vishnu in comparison to worship of demigods, because demigod worshippers, they only get temporary benefits. So even if one is having material desires, he is advised to worship the Lord, the Vishnu, Narayan, or Krishna. And in that sense, the Bhagavad Dharma is the highest Dharma, and I think we'll just hear now about it. So let me just quickly share my screen. So 41 is the shloka we're about to read. Share. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudeva, Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudeva, Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudeva, Narayan Namaskritya Nam Jiva Narayan. Santato Jayamadira, Nashka Besha Badash. Nityam Bhagata Seva Bhagavati Tamashloki Bhakti Bhagavati Nishtaki. So shloka 41. So continuing with the prayers. Vishwamatirna Yatra Nrinham Tvam Aham Itti Mama Thaveti Chayad Anyatra Vishwamadhiya Rachitoya Sakhya Vishuddha Kshayishnor Adharma Bahla. Translation. Being full of contradictions, all forms of religion, but Bhagavad Dharma work under the conceptions of fruitive results and distinctions of you and I, and yours and mine. The followers of Srimad Bhagavatam have no such consciousness. They are all Krishna conscious, thinking that they are Krishna's and Krishna is theirs. There are other low-class religious systems which are contemplated for the killing of enemies or the gain of mystic power. But such religious systems, being full of passion and envy, are impure and temporary. Because they are full of envy, they are full of irreligion, adharma bahula. So distinction is being made here between Bhagavad Dharma or Krishna consciousness and other dharmas. When Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita, Sarva Dharma Parityaja, abandon all varieties of religion, he means about other dharmas, including Varnashrama Dharma, which is also coming from him. And Bhagavad Dharma, or devotional service or bhakti, is the highest form of dharma or religion and should never be given up. Purport. Bhagavad Dharma has no contradictions. Conceptions of your religion and my religion are completely absent from Bhagavad Dharma. Bhagavad Dharma means following the orders given by the Supreme Lord Bhagavan. As said in Bhagavad Gita, Sarva Dharma Parityaja Mam Ekam Sharanam Vraja. God is one and God is for everyone. Therefore, everyone must surrender to God. That is the pure conception of religion. Whatever God orders constitutes religion. Dharmantu Sakshal Bhagavad Pranitam. In Bhagavad Dharma, there is no question of what you believe or what I believe. Everyone must believe in the Supreme Lord and carry out His orders. Anukulyena Krishna Anushilanam. Whatever Krishna says, whatever God says, should be directly carried out. That is Dharma, religion. If one is actually Krishna conscious, he cannot have any enemies. Since his only engagement is to induce others to surrender to Krishna or God, how can he have enemies? If one advocates the Hindu religion, the Muslim religion, the Christian religion, this religion or that religion, there will be conflicts. History shows that the followers of religious systems without a clear conception of God have fought with one another. The many instances of this in human history are systems of religion that do not concentrate upon service to the Supreme are temporary and cannot last for long because they are full of envy. The many activities directed against such religious systems, and therefore one must give up the idea of my belief and your belief. Everyone should believe in God and surrender unto Him. That is Bhagavad Dharma. So Bhagavad Dharma is not a concocted sectarian belief, for it entails research to find how everything is connected with Krishna. Ishavasyamidam sarvam. Ishavanishad mantra 1. According to the Vedic injunctions, sarvam kal idam brahma. Brahman, the Supreme, is present in everything. Bhagavad Dharma captures this presence of the Supreme. Bhagavad Dharma does not consider everything in the world to be false, because everything emanates from the Supreme. Nothing can be false. Everything has some use in the service of the Supreme. For example, we are now dictating into a microphone and recording on a dictating machine. And thus we are finding how the machine can be connected to the Supreme Brahman. Since we are using this machine in the service of the Lord, it is Brahman. This is the meaning of Sarvam Kal Idam Brahma. Everything is Brahman because everything can be used for the service of the Supreme. Nothing is mithya, false. Everything is factual. Bhagavad Dharma is called Sarvot Krishna, the best of all religious systems, because those who follow Bhagavad Dharma are not envious of anyone. Pure Bhagavatas, pure devotees invite everyone without envy to join the Krishna consciousness movement. And devotees therefore exactly like the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Surdam Sava Bhutanam. He is the friend of all living entities. Therefore, this is the best of all religious systems. Where so-called religions are meant for a particular type of person who believes in a particular way, such discrimination has no place in Krishna consciousness or Bhagavad Dharma. If we scrutinize the religious systems meant for worship of demigods or anyone else, but the Supreme Personality of Godhead, will find that they are full of envy and therefore impure. So here Prabhupada is making very, very important point that Bhagavad Dharma is completely non-sectarian. But somehow nowadays we kind of equate our Vaishnavism as a part of Hinduism. And obviously Hinduism is one of the religions that are sectarian, as Christianity or Islam or Judaism. But actually, original Bhagavad Dharma has nothing to do with any national designations. Everybody is a Jivatma or the soul, servant of Krishna. So everybody has the right to perform the Bhagavad Dharma. Of course, it would be difficult to explain to people who say, oh, but why you're calling God Krishna? Krishna is a Hindu god. But actually, he's not a Hindu god. But he chose to appear on the Indian subcontinent and to descend with his Dham. So that's why people, equate him with a Hindu god. But he's not Hindu. Just on the Indian subcontinent, the Bhagavad Dharma was practiced in the most pure form. And then we know the Kshatriyas who fled and populated the other parts of the world, like in Europe, not just Greeks, and here and there different sort of tribes left and populated different parts of the world. And in the beginning they followed the Bhagavad Dharma, but eventually it got degenerated and lost and turned into something else. And even in India itself, it turned into many different sort of worship. Shaivism, tantric sort of worship is present. So many things. Even Christianity is now prominent in and Islam, of course, in India. So these all sort of sectarian dharmas, which say only we and our followers will be saved, will go to heaven. So better become a Muslim, become a Hindu, become a Christian. Otherwise, you will lose salvation. But this is very narrow-minded conception of religion or dharma. Let's see what Vishnu Thakur says about this. In Bhakti Yoga, there are no conceptions of you and I and mine. The next verse speaks of the mentality of difference caused by hatred. This is mine, this is yours, I'm this, you are that. This is my enemy. Other than this Bhakti Yoga, in Dharma for material goals, conceptions of difference are produced, such as desire to kill an enemy. Kamya Dharma is criticized. That Dharma is impure since it's made of attraction and hatred. It is a subject to destruction, since its results are temporary. It's full of adharma, since violence is prominent. Shavara Swami has said, Ubhayam iha chudanayam, lakshate arto nartrascha, dharma and adharma seen in the rules for Kamya Dharma. So this Kamya Dharma is the Dharma religion meant for satisfying Kama, one's selfish desires for sense gratification. So even pure Dharma can become Kamya Dharma if it's approached in a wrong way. with the wrong motivation, you become a follower of that particular dharma or religion, or even Vaishnava dharma, just to fulfill your desires. And as soon as your desires are fulfilled, you stop your worship. This is not real dharma. It's called kaitava dharma, cheating dharma. Of course, bhakti yoga in its pure form is above it. But we should make sure that we are up to the standard of bhakti yoga and Bhagavad Dharma as pure devotees. That means that we are performing pure devotional service without desire for karma and jnana, without the mixtures, as Rupa Goswami defined as anya abhilashita shunyam jnana karma yanavritam and anukulyena krishna nushilanam bhaktirutama. Should be favorable to Krishna also, with the desire and intention for his satisfaction, not for our own satisfaction and fulfilling our own desires. Okay, 42. Tak shemo nija parayo kiyan bharta sva para druha dharmana swadroha thava kopa para sampidhaya chatatha dharmaha. How can a religious system that produces envy of oneself and of others be beneficial for oneself and for them? What is auspicious about following such a system? What is actually to be gained by causing pain to one's own self due to self-envy, and by causing pain to others, one arouses your anger and practices irreligion. Sometimes some followers of certain religions, they kill others, they throw a bomb and say, "Oh, we did it for God," and kill themselves and many others. Definitely they go to hell. And how can God be pleased by such themastic, destructive actions? Report. Any religious system, but the process of Bhagavad Dharma, service as an eternal servant of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, is a system of envy of one's own self and of others. For example, there are many systems of religion in which animal sacrifices are recommended. So this animal sacrifices, yaga, they come also under preview of the, you would say, Vedic culture, but still, they are considered systems of envy. Such animal sacrifices are inauspicious both for the performer and for the animal. Although one is sometimes permitted to sacrifice an animal before the goddess Kali and eat it instead of purchasing meat from a slaughterhouse, permission to eat meat after sacrifice in the presence of goddess Kali is not the order of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. It is a simple concession for the miserable person who will not give up eating meat. It is meant to restrict his desire for unrestricted meat eating. Such a religious system is condemned. Therefore, Krishna says, Sarva dharma parityaja mam ekam sharanam vraja. Give up all other duties and surrender unto me. This is the last word in religion. One may argue that the sacrifice of animals is recommended in the Vedas. This recommendation, however, is a restriction. Without Vedic restrictions on the purchase of meat, people will purchase meat from the market, which will be overflooded with the meat shops, and slaughterhouses will increase. To restrict this, sometimes the Vedas say that one may eat meat after sacrificing any significant animal like a goat before the goddess Kali. In any case, a system of religion in which animal sacrifices are recommended is inauspicious for those who perform the sacrifices and for the animals. Envious persons who perform ostentatious animal sacrifices are condemned in Bhagavad Gita as follows. Atma sambhavita stabda dhanamana madamvita yajante nama yagyaiste dambena vidhi purvakam. Self-complacement and always impudent, deluded by wealth, and false prestige, they sometimes perform sacrifices in name only, without following any rules or regulations. Sometimes animal sacrifices are performed very gorgeously with grand arrangements for worshipping the goddess Kali. But such festivals, although performed in the name of Yagya, are not actually Yagya. For Yagya means to satisfy the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Therefore, it is recommended that in this age, specifically Yagya Sankirtana Prayer, Yajantihi Sumedasa. Those who have good intelligence satisfy the Yagya Purusha Vishnu by chanting the Hare Krishna mantra. Envious persons, however, are condemned by the Supreme Personality of Godhead as follows: Ahankaram balam dharpam kamam krodam chasam shritha mam atma paradeheshu pravishanto abhyasuyaka tanaham dvishata kruran sansarishu naradaman Shipam yajasram ashubhan asurishveva yonishu. Bewildered by false ego, strength, pride, lust, and anger, the demon becomes envious of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is situated in his own body and in the bodies of others, and blasphemes against the real religion. Those who are envious and mischievous, or the lowest among men, are cast by me into the ocean of material existence, into various demonic species of life. These persons are condemned by the Supreme Personality of Godhead, as indicated by the words Tavakopa. A person who commits murder is envious of himself and also the person he has killed, for the result of committing murder is that he will be arrested and hanged. If one transgresses the laws of man-made government, he may escape being killed by the state, but one cannot escape the laws of God. A killer of any animal must be killed in his next life by the same animal. This is the law of nature. One must follow the instructions of the Supreme Lord. Sarva dharmam parityaja mahamekam sharanam raja. If one follows any other system of religion, he is subject to punishment by the Supreme Personality of Godhead in many different ways. Therefore, if one follows a concocted system of religion, he is envious not only of others but also of himself. Consequently, his system of religion is useless. Sri Bhagavatam says, Dharma svanishtita pumsam vishvaksena katasuya not padhayet yadi ratim shama eva hikevalam. Duties dharma executed by men regardless of occupation only so much uses labor if they do not provoke attraction for the message of the Supreme Lord. Following a system of religion that does not awaken one's Krishna consciousness or God consciousness is merely a waste of time and labor. So it's a Shama Eva. Kevalam. So the religious systems where one sacrifices animals is mentioned here for the purpose of eating meat. I don't think that it's maybe 50 years ago when Prabhupada was here, it was still going on here and there a little bit in India, but I don't know anybody now who is doing the yagya and offers meat to Durga or Kali. They just go and buy the meat and eat it. And they may worship the Durga as well, but they don't care to do any yagya. So there is no restriction anymore. Even that kind of restriction that was there, it completely got lost. That's why Lord Buddha, he came and he introduced ahimsa. He basically denied that authenticity of the Vedas. He said, forget about the Vedas, just practice ahimsa, practice non-violence, meditation, good conduct. First become morally good people. First develop some, human qualities. And then at later stage, you might engage in some worship. So in that sense, I would argue that, strict Buddhists who follow Lord Buddha's instructions and who follow ahimsa and other principles laid by Lord Buddha, they're higher than Durga worshippers who eat meat and commit violence towards the animals. Of course, nowadays Buddhism is also degraded. Even the Acharya, Dalai Lama himself, he eats meat because, as he says, it's required for his health, which is very lame excuse. Even in Christianity, those who are really serious, they are vegetarians. There are some Christian orders, for example, in Greece, there are some very strict celibate monks living on Mount Athos, and they are all vegetarians. They eat very, very austere and simple vegetarian food. So to speak, in other religions, there are some also other Christian sects, like I think I forget exactly, with the Mormons or some other, the Seventh-day Adventists, I think. Yeah, they're vegetarians. So how can one engage in a worship of God if he's not following the basic moral rules, if he's committing violence towards others, including animals? This is the point that is being made here. First become a human being, then actually you can engage in a worship of God. Otherwise, God will not accept your worship. So the previous statement is made clear. What is the benefit of thinking oneself and other objects which are mine, such sons and wife? Is there no benefit? By that there is a violence to oneself and others, because by performing austerities which inflict pain on one's body for committing violence to others, one becomes angry and becomes sinful, adharma. So committing violence to one's own body and to body of others is sinful, and one becomes adharmic. He gets sinful reaction for that. If one kills his own body, the punishment is very severe. He cannot get gross body for quite some time. But sometimes we find even the cases of devotees sometimes committing suicide, just being not being completely conscious how serious it is. Of course, we recognize their suffering. They have going through some mental anguish and depression, and it's very difficult. But still, to commit suicide is a serious violation of the laws of God, and one will have to suffer for this. Of course, it's I had one friend who was almost on the verge of killing himself, but somehow he got out of it and didn't do it. And he was a devotee for many, many years. And then later, when he told me, he said it just such unbearable suffering because it's like a mental disease that you cannot bear yourself anymore. You just wanna do something to get out of that situation. And he knew that it's not good, but still he planned. Actually, he made a plan. He bought a knife. He prepared everything, this and that, but then somehow he didn't do it. And now he's good now. Somehow Krishna helped him in the last moment before killing himself. But I heard some other cases of devotees who did it for different variety of reasons.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu.
Yes, please.
If I can ask, we know in the community here in London several devotees who have committed suicide, initiated devotees, been in the movement for a long time. And it's unfathomable how, despite knowing that this is one of the most severe violations that one can commit, how initiated devotees can get to that point. Any explanation as to how we can read that and what would happen to such devotees?
I also couldn't understand, because I was thinking logically, it's just completely, insane, illogical. But this, my friend who was on the verge, he explained to me the suffering, that mental suffering in that state of mind is so great that you cannot think anymore logically. You are just completely out of yourself. The pain is, that mental pain of that mental suffering is so great. It's much greater than any physical pain that you can experience. So in that state, you forget everything. You just want to end the suffering, and they don't think that they will end up with the greater suffering. But somehow they cannot think anymore. It's just the mental anguish of that depression, that mental state is so great that that one just completely goes for it. Sometimes also could be influenced by the subtle beings, like like the ghosts who are just pushing a person to do it. Somebody is just possessed, and you're not in control actually what you're doing. That evil spirits, they dictate. That could be also the reason. So how to help, how to now I think this friend of mine, he was doing some counseling with a devoted psychotherapist, and that Mataji, she requested him to promise her that he will not do it till next time they meet it. Otherwise, she will report to authorities, and then the police would come, and it would be. So he had to promise her, and only because he promised her, he didn't do it. And then, in meanwhile, during this period of time, something happened, and his mind cleared, and he stopped on that plan. He forget about that plan. So somehow, Krishna tricked him with the help of the Mataji. So it requires really some serious professional, to counsel these people. I don't think that we are really very much equipped, because we will just speak, from the Shastra, but they cannot relate to it. You can speak in very logically, very shastrically, this and that, but it doesn't appeal to person who is in such a mental state that he is about to kill himself. You need to know how to relate to such a person, to empathize with him, to not to scare him with the fear of the punishment, but somehow to give him some reason to live, to somehow inspire him and lift him up. In my perception, that would be the few times I spoke to that my friend before he was planning to do it, but it was not really effective. You just present the facts, but then he hears, it comes through one ear, then goes out through another ear, and then but what we can do as a society or a community, it would be not good not to ostracize people for certain reasons. I knew another devotee who committed suicide in Washington, D.C. maybe 20 years ago. And it happened that he came out as a gay, and then he was ostracized. He was condemned by the temple authorities, by some devotees, and he felt so bad that he went to the nearby forest and he hanged himself. At least we could, not condemn people for their sexual or social orientation or whatever it is, and in this way make them feel so bad to commit such horrible acts. At least that we should be considerate, empathic, open-minded, not condemning devotee, because we don't know what that can cause. It can cause somebody to kill himself if you condemn him and tell him, oh, this is very wrong. Prabhupada said this, Prabhupada said that. It's very bad. You're very fallen. And then if you people say things like this, that person commits suicide. And then whose responsibility is this? Of course, you can say it's his, but we also contributed to it because we were not enough compassionate, not enough empathic. I don't know, Prabhu, this is how much I can say about it. If you have any experience on your own, please share. If not, we will continue.
This is a very, very quick follow-up question, Prabhu.
Yes,
Sorry for that.
yeah.
So what would how should we understand? I mean, given that these are reasonably committed devotees in terms of they've taken up to Krishna consciousness, and yet this still happens. I mean, we know by Shastra what is the destination of someone who's done that, but do you think there are exceptions to those that have practiced devotional service in terms of what the destination is? Do they still get a subtle body? I mean, and also why Krishna would allow them to come to that sort of point if they've come to the point of bhakti? Because we're told that if we've chanted the name of Krishna once, then Krishna will protect. So then on the other side we're saying perhaps ghosts and may have taken over the thought process, but presumably it's just a difficult thing to get your head around, this particular area. So and we knew these devotees, and they were really, really nice, committed devotees, and yet this happens, and it is just it really was a real shock to our whole community that it happened. But how to understand this and how to understand the destination of such devotees is also a little perplexing. Yeah. Sorry, I didn't want to drag this out.
Yeah, we can. This is interesting topic. Well, I would say that it's karma. It's prarabdha karma. Like the physical disease is your prarabdha karma, and in many cases devotees go through a lot of physical suffering, and we don't wonder why Krishna is not removing it. Similarly, with this mental disease and suffering and depression, it's also karma, just different sort of karma. And of course, you can say one has a free will, but sometimes the pushing is so great that one just cannot resist. It's such a strong mental anguish that one cannot resist of doing the wrong thing. In regards to what is the destination suffering of such people, I would say that it's not the same as with ordinary people who never came in touch with devotional service. The devotee will certainly have to suffer, but it will not be the same. It will not be in terms of duration and the quantity of the suffering. Yeah, he might not get the subtle body immediately, but after some time, I cannot say exactly for how long, but he will get it. He will not have to wait for 700 lifetimes, which is the shastric punishment. 700 lifetimes you don't get a subtle body. No, devotee will maybe suffer for some years, but then due to his previous devotional service, he'll be awarded again the human form of life. We have that description of Chota Haridas in Chaitanya Charitamrita, who committed a suicide, and definitely some devotees speculated that he became a ghost when they heard his voice singing for Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. But then Swarup Damodar, he explained to them, it's impossible that Chota Haridas attained the body of a ghost, because all his life, he very strictly followed the principles of devotional service, and he was very much devoted to Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. It's impossible such a person, even if he commits suicide, to become degraded. So we must conclude that he attained the ultimate spiritual destination, that he attained his spiritual body. Of course, Chota Haridas was the source of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Ordinary sadhaka devotees might not immediately be, promoted to spiritual body just by killing themselves, but at least they will not be punished as much as a normal person who never had any contact with devotional service. They'll be punished, but the punishment will be less and it will be shorter. This is my take on it. So I don't know if you will agree with that, but this is how I see it.
Thank you, Prabhu. Sorry for dragging it out. Apologies.
Okay, let us continue. Na vyabi charati taveksha yaya hyabihito bhagavato dharma sirachara sattva kadam beshva prithag diyoyam upasate tvarya. My dear Lord, one's occupational duty is instructed in Srimad Bhagavata and Bhagavad Gita according to your point of view, which never deviates from the highest goal of life. Those who follow their occupational duties under your supervision, being equal to all living entities, moving and non-moving, and not considering high and low, are called Aryans. Such Aryans worship you, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So, Hitler, during the Second World War, he called Germans Aryans, and he thought that they are Aryans, but actually this is the definition of an Aryan, the civilized followers of the Vedic civilization. Purport. Bhagavad Dharma and Krishna Katha identical. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu wanted everyone to become a guru and preach the instructions of Krishna everywhere, from Bhagavad Gita, Srimad Bhagavatam, the Puranas, Vedanta Sutra, and similar Vedic literatures. Aryans who advance in civilization follow Bhagavad Dharma. Prahlad Maharaj, although merely a child of 5 years, recommended Komar Acharet Pragyo Dharmam Bhagavatam Yaha Durlabham Manushan Janma Tadyat Adruvam Arthadam. Prahlad Maharaj preached Bhagavad Dharma among his classmates as soon as an opportunity was afforded by the absence of his teachers from the classroom. He said that from the very beginning of life, from the age of 5, children should be instructed about Bhagavad Dharma because the human form of life, which is very rarely obtained, is meant for understanding this subject. Bhagavad Dharma means living according to the instructions of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. In Bhagavad Gita, we find that the Supreme Lord has arranged human society in 4 social divisions, namely Brahmana, Kshatriya, Vaishya, and Shudra. Again, the Puranas and other Vedic literatures set forth 4 ashramas, which are the divisions of spiritual life. Therefore, Bhagavad Dharma means the Varnashrama Dharma of the 4 social and 4 spiritual divisions. The members of human society who strictly follow the principles of Bhagavad Dharma and live according to the instructions of the Supreme Personality of Godhead are called Aryans or Arya. A civilization of Aryans who strictly follow the instructions of Lord and never deviate from those instructions is perfect. Such civilized men do not discriminate between trees, animals, human beings, and other living entities. So Hitler and Nazis, they called themselves Aryans, but they discriminated not only between the humans and animals, they discriminated between different nations. So no, they discriminate Jews as and others, and gypsies and others as low class humans. So definitely this was a complete falsity, and calling themselves Aryans was completely inappropriate. So Pandita Samadarshina, because they are completely educating Krishna consciousness, they see all living beings equally. Aryans do not kill even a small plant unnecessarily, not to speak of cutting trees for sense gratification. At the present moment, throughout the world, killing is prominent. Men are killing trees, they're killing animals, they're killing other human beings also, all for sense gratification. This is not an Aryan civilization. It's stated here, Stirachara Sattva Kadam Beshva Pritagdhya. The word apritagdhya indicates that Aryans do not distinguish between lower and higher grades of life. All life should be protected. All living beings have a right to live, even the trees and plants. This is the basic principle of an Aryan civilization. Apart from the lower living entities, those who have come to the platform of human civilization should be divided into society of Brahmanas, Kshatriyas, Vaishyas, and Shudras. The Brahmanas should follow the instructions of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, stated in Bhagavad Gita and other Vedic literatures. The criterion must be guna and karma. In other words, one should inquire the qualities of a Brahmana, Kshatriya, Vaishya, and Shudra and act accordingly. This is the civilization accepted by the Aryans. Why do they accept it? They accept it because they are very much eager to satisfy Krishna. This is perfect civilization. Aryans do not deviate from the instructions of Krishna, nor do they have doubts about Krishna. But non-Aryans and other demoniac people fail to follow the instructions of Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam. This is because they have been trained in sense gratification at the cost of all other living entities. Nunam pramata kurute vikarma. Their only business is to indulge in all kinds of forbidden activities for sense gratification. Yet indriya prittaya aprinoti. They deviate in this way because they want to gratify their senses. They have no other occupation or ambition. The method of civilization is condemned in the previous verse. Kakshemonija pareo kriyan kiyan vartasva paradruha dharmena. What is the meaning of a civilization that kills oneself and others? This verse therefore advises that everyone become a member of the Aryan civilization and accept the instructions of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. One should conduct his social, political, and religious affairs according to his instructions. We are spreading the Krishna consciousness movement to try to establish a society the way that Krishna wants it. This is the meaning of Krishna consciousness. We are therefore presenting Bhagavad Gita as it is and kicking out all kinds of mental concoctions. Fools and rascals interpret Bhagavad Gita in their own way. When Krishna says, Man mana bhava mad bhakto, mad yajmam namaskuru. Always think of me, become my devotee, worship me, and offer your homage unto me. They command that it is not Krishna to whom we must surrender. Thus they derive imaginary meanings from Bhagavad Gita. The Krishna consciousness movement, however, strictly follows Bhagavad Dharma, the instructions of Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam, for the complete welfare of human society. One who misinterprets Bhagavad Gita, twisting out some meaning for his sense gratification, is a non-Aryan. Therefore, commentaries on Bhagavad Gita by such persons should be immediately rejected. One should try to follow Bhagavad Gita as it is. In Bhagavad Gita, Lord Krishna says, Yetus harmani karmani mai sanyasamat para ananyenaiva yogena mam jayanta upasate eshamaham samudarta mrityu samsara sagarat bhavami nachirat partha maya veshita chetasam. One who worships me, giving up all his activities unto me, and being devoted to me without deviation, engaged in devotional service, and always meditating upon me, who has fixed his mind upon me, O son of Pritha, for him, I am the swift deliverer from the ocean of birth and death. So we want to become Aryans, means devotees of Krishna. This is actually the true meaning of Aryan. But even nowadays, some people misunderstand the term there is even some devotee who has some Aryan Facebook group, and he promotes his own idea in the name of Prabhupada there. But again, he is a little bit misguided in that. You use this term Aryan for something exclusive club, and we are the best. Everybody else is, even other devotees who do not understand my conceptions, they are non-Aryans, they are useless. This sort of sectarian thinking is sometimes seen even amongst devotees. So Visionary Thakur, people follow Kamya Dharma, even though it is temporary and full of faults, because they see results. They have doubt to follow Nishkama Dharma, though it is faultless, because they do not see results. So this Nishkama Dharma is acting without desiring the fruits of results. You just do your own duty, Nishkama Karma Yoga, without desiring result. Your Brahman, your Kshatriya, Vaishya, or Shudra, and whatever your particular duty is, you do it for the pleasure of the Lord, not for your own sense gratification. So your judgment, Iksha, that the jiva becomes successful by bhakti to you, does not waver. In Kamya Dharma, the results sometimes are unsteady, but in bhakti, under your supervision, the results are not unsteady. Therefore, cultured people perform bhakti. Let the uncultured people have their doubts. Such cultured persons have intelligence which does not see happiness and distress in oneself and others as different. Apritagdhya. The matter of this verse is called Arya. So those who are devotees, they will perform devotional service, but still there are many people in the world who are not ready for devotional service. If you go now to them and tell them surrender to Krishna, leave everything, they cannot accept it. They don't have faith. It takes, lifetimes to build up some sukriti. So people who have no sukriti, they cannot immediately become devotees like this. So what we are going to do with them? Somehow they need a system to gradually progress. And that system is called Varnashrama Dharma. They follow the rules and regulations of the Varna and Ashrama, and in this way they stay dharmic. They follow the Krishna's instruction in that way, and gradually they make progress. And then in next life, maybe they become eligible to become devotees and take up the devotional service directly. But of course, how to establish Varnashrama Dharma in the world, which is completely asuric, it's very difficult. We haven't been able to establish it even within society of devotees, what to speak in the outside world. So I think it will take some generations. Now we are planting the seeds, and people are gradually building their sukriti by activities like harinams, prasadam distribution, and other devotional activities. So gradually, over some generations, the sukriti in the society might build up, and then people will become more open. And then after some, I don't know how many decades or hundreds of years, when devotees get in prominent position in society, then Varnashrama Dharma could be established. Now, when you have the demons in the governments of the countries, how can you establish anything? They are dictating their own thing. But once pious and dharmic persons and devotees come in the high and prominent positions, then something dharmic could be established. Something like Varnashrama Dharma. But it will take some time, and I'm not sure whether we'll see it in our lifetime, unless we are very young, but most of us, I'm not sure. Nahi Bhagavan agati tam idam Vadarshanam nrinam akila papakshaya Yanama sakrit chirvanat Pukasho vimuchyate samsarat. My Lord, it is not impossible one to be immediately freed from all material contamination by seeing you. Not to speak of seeing you personally, merely by hearing the holy name of your Lordship only once. Even Chandalas, men of the lowest class, are free from all material contamination. Under the circumstances, who will not be freed from material contamination simply by seeing you? So it means direct touch with the Lord and devotional service and devotees is freeing one immediately from material contamination. But if there is no such direct touch, then gradual purification takes time. It requires time. Purport. As stated in Srimad Bhagavatam, Yan Nama Shruti Matrana Pumam Bhavati Nirmala. Simply by hearing the holy name of the Lord, one is immediately purified. Therefore, in this age of Kali, when all people are very contaminated, and the chanting of the holy name of the Lord is recommended as the only means of improvement. Hare Nama, Hare Nama, Hare Nama eva kevalam, kalam nast eva gatir anyata. In this age of quarrel and hypocrisy, the only means of deliverance is chanting of the holy name of the Lord. There is no other way, there is no other way, there is no other way. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu introduced this chanting of the holy name 500 years ago. And now, to the Krishna conscious movement, the Hare Krishna movement, we are actually seeing that men who are considered to belong to the lowest class are being delivered from all sinful activities simply by hearing the holy name of the Lord. Sansara, material existence, is a result of sinful actions. Everyone in this material world is condemned. Yet, as there are different grades of prisoners, the different grades of men, all of them in all statuses of life are suffering. To stop the suffering of material existence, one must take to the Hare Krishna movement of Sankirtan or Krishna conscious life. Herein it is said, Yanama Sakrit Shravanat. The holy name of the Supreme Personality of Godhead is so powerful that if once heard without offenses, it can purify the lowest man. Kirata Hunandra Pulinda Pulkasha. As such men, who are called Chandalas, are less than Shudras, but they also can be purified simply by hearing the holy name of the Lord. Not to speak of personality, of personally seeing the Lord. From our present position, the Supreme Personality of Godhead can be personally seen as the deity in the temple. The deity of the Lord is not different from the Supreme Lord. Because we cannot see the Supreme Lord with our present blunt eyes, the Lord has kindly consented to come before us in a form we can see. Therefore, the deity in the temple should not be considered material. By offering food to the deity and by decorating and serving the deity, one gets the same result that one derives from serving the Lord personally in Vaikuntha. So, coming in contact directly with the deities, we are getting purified in the same way as we will be purified by contacting the Lord directly. I have obtained direct results of this pure bhakti. Nrina, man, here means Chitraketu. What to speak of destruction of sins, it gives liberation. Just one name is sufficient to do this. What then will happen by many names? And just one time hearing is sufficient. What happens when one hears many times? And just by hearing the name, this happens. What then will happen if one chants the name? This happens for outcasts. What then will happen for others? It delivers one from the material world. Then what to speak of destroying all sins? And one sees the results during practice, sadhana. So basically it's glorifying direct contact of the Lord, especially chanting of his holy name and hearing of his holy name. It bestows such a great result, even heard or pronounced only once. What to speak if one engages in a regular practice. Of course, in order to give full results and quick results, it needs to be offenseless, because the apparatus are those things that are dampening and decreasing the effect of the name. Excuse me. Ata Bhagavan Vayam Aduna Pad Avaloka Vayamrishta Shayam Hala Sura Rishina Yat Katitham Tavakina Katam Anyatha Bhavati. Therefore, my dear Lord, simply seeing you has now wiped away all the contamination of sinful activities and their results of material attachment and lusty desires which always fill my mind and the core of my heart. Whatever is predicted by the great sage Narada Muni cannot be otherwise. In other words, I have obtained your audience as a result of being trained by Narada Muni. This is the process of the perfect way. One must take lessons from authorities like Narada, Vyasa, and Asita and follow their principles. And then one will be able to see the Supreme Personality of Godhead, even with one's own eyes. One only needs training. Adasha Krishna Namadi Nambhavet Grahyam Indriyai. With our blunt eyes and other senses, we cannot perceive the Supreme Personality of Godhead. But if we engage our senses in the service of the Lord, according to the instructions of the authorities, it will be possible to see him. As soon as one sees the Supreme Personality of Godhead, all the sinful reactions in the core of one's heart are certainly vanquished. So sadhana bhakti is the process of engaging the senses and the mind in the process of bhakti, and through this engagement, these senses and the mind are gradually purified, and then once they are completely purified, one is able to see the Lord, to perceive the Lord. But it is important that together with other senses, the mind is engaged as well. Otherwise, if we just do, mechanically with our hands or with our voice, chant absent-mindedly, or just, do some physical service with our hands, and the mind is elsewhere, such mechanical engagement will take a long time before we get purified. So when the senses and the mind are both engaged together and united in the Krishna service with the intention of pleasing Krishna, then the advancement is much faster. Because the whole point is to engage the mind. If you remember, Upadeshamrita, the essence of all instructions, as Rupa Goswami teaches us, the essence of all instructions is to gradually engage the mind in nicely hearing and chanting and remembering Krishna, his name, form, qualities, and pastimes. So everything has to lead to this point, that the mind is engaged in remembering Krishna. So Chitraketu expressed in this verse that he has become successful in his devotional service. So hopefully one day we can also say that at the moment we are just aspiring for that, to become successful. So viditam ananta samastam thava jagat atmano janar ihacharitam vigyapyam parama guru yad eva savitur eva kadyothai. Unlimited Supreme Personality of Godhead. Whatever a living entity does in this material world is well known to you because you are the super soul. In the presence of the sun, there is nothing to be revealed by the light of a glowworm. Similarly, because you know everything, in your presence, there is nothing for me to make known. Though I was blind in material enjoyment, inspired by your devotee, I was delivered from the well of samsara and brought to your lotus feet. What else can I reveal? Everything is known to you. What can be revealed by a firefly in front of the sun, and what can be revealed by me in front of you? So it is quite obvious, because the Lord is all-pervading. Nothing can be hidden from him, and nothing is unknown to him. He is omniscient. This is, the absolute fact. But sometimes we assume that spiritual master or guru, he is in a similar way all-knowing, sarvagya, and that he knows what we think and what we do, but that might not necessarily always be the case. Spiritual master will know as much as the Lord wants him to know. Whatever Lord tells him from the heart as a super soul. Otherwise, the jiva, even if he's acting and serving as a spiritual master, is not omniscient and all-knowing. That characteristic of omniscience belongs only to the Supreme Lord. Namastubhyam Bhagavate Sakala Jagastiti Layodhaye Shaya Duravasi Tatma Ghathaye Yoginam Vida Paramahamsaya. Regarding this omniscience of a guru, I just remember when they asked Prabhupada about it, he said that guru means one who knows about devotional service, not that he knows how many atoms and molecules are in the universe and these sort of things. Only Krishna knows these things. But Krishna Tattva Veta, this is the guru. He knows the science of Krishna Bhakti. He knows the science of Krishna. This is the meaning of guru, not that he is omniscient in absolute sense. My dear Lord, you are the creator, maintainer, annihilator of this cosmic manifestation. But persons who are too materialistic and who always see separateness do not have eyes with which to see you. They cannot understand your real position, and therefore they conclude that the cosmic manifestation is dependent of your opulence. Oh my Lord, You're the supreme pure, and you're full in all six opulences. Therefore, I offer my respectful obeisances unto you. Atheistic men think that the cosmic manifestation has come about by chance, by combination of matter without reference to God. Materialistic so-called chemists and atheistic philosophers always try to avoid even the name of God in relation to the cosmic manifestation. But then God's creation is impossible to understand because they are too materialistic. The Supreme Personality of Godhead is Paramahamsa, or the Supreme Pure, whereas those who are sinful, being very much attached to material sense enjoyment, and therefore engaging in material activities like asses, are the lowest of men. All their so-called scientific knowledge is null and void because of their atheistic temperament. Thus, they cannot understand the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Again, Srila Prabhupada is here getting on the case of scientists and scientific knowledge. There was that scientist, what was his name? In a wheelchair. He couldn't even, speak properly. He needed a special machine to speak. But still, and he was a very much atheistic opponent, proposing that there is no God. And he wrote the history of time or something like that. And all his, presentations were, completely booked. People were mesmerized by his so-called intelligence. But he was such an atheistic rascal that he was punished by God even in his present body by not being able, to walk, to speak properly. So I don't know what will happen to him in the next life, whether he already passed away. I can't remember his name now, but it was the famous, one of the famous scientists of the modern days. So your position is hard to understand by the false yogis who see with a difference. In the form of the great swan, you delivered jivas. Yam vaishvasantam anu vishvasreja shvasanti, yam chikitanam anu chittaya uchakhanti, boom mandalam sarshapayati yasya murni, tasmai now bhagavate stu sahasramurdne. My dear Lord, it is after your endeavor that Lord Brahma, Indra, and other directors of the cosmic manifestation become occupied with their activities. It is after you perceive the material energy, my Lord, that the senses begin to perceive. The Supreme Personality of Godhead holds all the universes on his heads like seeds of mustard. I offer my respectful obeisances unto you, that Supreme Personality who has thousands of hoods. Shvasanta means actions. After the Lord's actions, the Devatas can use their action senses. After the Lord sees, the knowledge senses can perceive their sense objects. So nothing in this world can work without the Lord. He is the basis of everything. Even the actions of our senses are just impossible without his sanction. Shishukavacha Samsuto Bhagavan Evam Anantastam Abhashata Vidyadharapatim Pritash Chitraketum Kurudvaha. Shukadeva Goswami continued, the Lord, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Ananta Dev, was very much pleased with the prayers offered by Chitraketu. The king of the Vidyadharas replied to him as follows. O best of Kuru dynasty, Maharaj Parikshit. Shri Bhagavan Vacha Yan Naradan Giro Bhyamte Vyahrita Me Nushasanam Samsido Sitaya Rajan Vidyaya Darshana Chame. The Supreme Personality of Godhead Ananta Deva replied as follows: O King, as a result of your having accepted the instructions spoken about me by the great sages Narada and Angira, you have become completely aware of transcendental knowledge. Because you are now educated in spiritual science, you have seen me face to face. Therefore, you are now completely perfect. Samsiddha. So he became a Siddha, Samsiddha, by seeing the Lord in person. Somewhere else it's called also Vastu Siddhi. When you see you realize your spiritual form and you realize the Lord's form. The perfection of life is to be spiritually educated and to understand the existence of the Lord and how he creates, maintains, and annihilates the cosmic manifestation. When one is perfect in knowledge, he can allow his love of Godhead to the association of such perfect persons as Narada and Angira and the member of their disciplic succession. When one is able to see the unlimited Supreme Personality of Godhead face to face. Although the Lord is unlimited, by his causeless mercy, he becomes visible to the devotee who is then able to see him. In our present position of conditional life, we cannot see or understand the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Ata Shri Krishna Namadina Bhavet Grahya Mindriyai Sriyanmukhi Jivadau Swam Eva Spurat Yada. No one can understand the transcendental nature of the name, form, quality, and pastimes of Shri Krishna through his materially contaminated senses. Only when one becomes spiritually saturated by transcendental service to the Lord, transcendental name, form, quality, and pastimes of the Lord are revealed. If one takes to spiritual life under the direction of Narada Muni or his representative, and thus engages himself in the service of the Lord, he qualifies himself to see the Lord face to face. The Brahma Samhita states, Premanjana Churita Bhakti Vilochanena Santa Sadaiva Daeshu Vilokayanti Yam Shama Sundaram Achintya Guna Swarupam Govindamadi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami. I worship the primeval Lord Govinda, who is always seen by the devotee, whose eyes are anointed by the pulp of love. He is seen in his eternal form of Shama Sundara, situated within the heart of the devotee. One must follow the instructions of the spiritual master. Thus one becomes qualified and later sees the Supreme Personality of Godhead as evinced by Maharaj Chitraketu. So here it's described how actually one sees the Lord. And everything starts with the tongue. One engages the tongue in chanting of the name of the Lord. And then one's senses, the mind and the self, the Atma, they become gradually purified. And one is able to perceive the Lord's form. He perceives that the Lord's name is not different from the Lord. When he changes the name, he sees the Lord. And also not only he sees the Lord, but he sees his own self. It's called Swarup Siddhi, when one realizes his own eternal Swarupa, his eternal form in which he serves the Lord. And that happens at the stage of Swarup Siddhi, happens at the stage of Bhava. So we go through all the stages as described by Vishwachakra Thakur in Madhurya Kadambini, from Shraddha, Bhajana, Kriya, Anartha, Nivritti to Nishta, which is a kind of turning point. And then gradually Ruchi, Asakti, and Bhava. So at the stage of Bhava, we actually get the spurtis of the Lord's form, and we perceive our own spiritual form, which can be in different rasas. Generally, in Gaudiya Vaishnava Sampradaya, it's either Sakya or Madhurya, prominently Madhurya rasa is the rasa of most of our acharyas, but there are some Sakya rasa also there. So we perceive our spiritual form in our particular rasa, and we perceive the Lord who reciprocates our love in that particular rasa. And then once we achieve prema and go to the universe where the Lord performs his own pastimes, when we take birth in a universe where the Lord performs his pastimes in Gokula, somewhere in some universe, then we achieve what is called Vastu Siddhi, that we achieve our own eternal form. We actually attain that form. And that form is from now on always our. We never lose it anymore. There's no changing of the body anymore. From that material universe where Krishna performs his pastimes, we get training in higher stages of bhava, starting with mana and others, in association of Nitya Siddha associates of the Lord. And then when the time comes, we are effortlessly transferred to Goloka, Vrindavan, in the spiritual world, from that particular material universe where Krishna performs his pastimes. So seeing the Lord also means seeing your own self. At the moment, we don't know who we are. We don't know even how we look like in this. What is our spiritual form? We just see this body and have some vague conception we are the soul, devotee of Krishna, servant of Krishna. But it's a very generic conception. You know? Krishna Das. But that conception should get refined as we progress to the particular specific form and specific rasa with the Krishna. Okay, so 51. Aham vai sarva bhutani, bhutatma bhuta bhavana, shabda brahma param brahma, mamobe shashvatu tanu. All the entities, moving and unmoving, are my expansions and separate from me. I'm the super soul of all living beings who exist because I manifest them. I'm the form of the transcendental vibrations like Omkara and the Hare Krishna, Hare Rama. And I'm the supreme absolute truth. These two forms of mind, namely transcendental sound and eternally blissful spiritual form of the deity, are my eternal forms. They are not material. So the deity form and then holy name, they are Krishna's eternal forms. Prabhupada here inserts Hare Krishna, Hare Rama. I'm quite sure that it's not mentioned directly in the shloka. It says Shabda Brahma. So it's a transcendental sound vibration. And of course, Mahamantra is the transcendental sound vibration of Shabda Brahma. Even more than Omkara, on the same platform as Omkara. The science of devotional service has been instructed by Narada and Angira to Chitraketu. Now, because of Chitraketu's devotional service, he has seen the Supreme Personality of Godhead. By performing devotional service, one advances step by step. And when one is on the platform of love of Godhead, Prema Pumarto Mahan, he sees the Supreme Lord at every moment. As stated in Bhagavad Gita, when one engages in devotional service 24 hours a day, Tesham Satata Yuktanam Bhajatam Pritipurvakam. In accordance with the instructions of the spiritual master, his devotional service becomes more and more pleasing. And then the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is within the core of everyone's heart, speaks to the devotee, Dadhami Buddhi Yogam Tam Yenamam Upayanti Te. Chitraketu Maharaj was first instructed by his gurus, Angira and Narada, and now having followed their instructions, he has come to the stage of seeing the Supreme Lord face to face. Therefore, the Lord is now instructing him in the essence of knowledge. The essence of knowledge is that there are two kinds of vastu, or substances. One is real, and other being illusory or temporary, is sometimes called non-factual. One must consider these two kinds of existence. The real tattva, or truth, consists of Brahman, Paramatman, Bhagavan. Instead, in Srimad Bhagavatam, Vadanti tat tattva vidas tattvam yad jnanam abhyayam brahmeti paramadmeti bhagavaniti shabdate. Learned transcendentalists who know the absolute truth call this non-dual substance Brahman, Paramatma, or Bhagavan. The absolute truth exists eternally in three features. Therefore, Brahman, Paramatma, and Bhagavan combined are the substance. The categories of emanations from the non-substance are two activities and forbidden activities, karma and vikarma. Karma refers to the pious life or material activities performed during the day and the mental activities of dreams at night. These are more or less desired activities. Vikarma, however, refers to illusory activities, which is something like the will of the wisp. These are activities that have no meaning. For example, modern scientists imagine the life can be produced from chemical combinations, and they are very busy trying to prove this in laboratories throughout the world, although no one in history has been able to produce the substance of life from material combinations. Such activities are called vikarma. Yeah, nowadays, I don't know how much they try to produce life, but they try to go to the space. Just a few days ago, I think there was that launch of the SpaceX rocket of Elon Musk. And it was, of course, non-successful. He started losing the height, the speed, and they had to explode it. And they lost a couple of billions of dollars just for this sort of experiment, trying to go somewhere where they're not allowed to go by nature's laws. All material activities are actually illusory, and progress in illusion is simply a waste of time. These illusory activities are called akarya, and one must learn of them from the instructions of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. As stated in Bhagavad Gita, karmano hyapi bodavyam chavikarmana, akarmana cha bodavyam gahana karmano gattehe. The intricacies of action are very hard to understand. Therefore, one should know properly what action is, what forbidden action is, and what inaction is. One must learn of this directly from the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who, as Ananta Dev, is instructing King Chitraketu because of the advanced stage of devotional service he achieved by following the instructions of Narada and Angira. Herein it is said, Aham vai sarva bhutani. The Lord is everything, sarva bhutani, including the living entities and the material or physical elements. As the Lord says in Bhagavad Gita, Bhumi rapo nalo vayu, kam mano buddhirevacha ahankara ityame bina prakriti rashtada. Apareya mitas tvanyam prakritim vidime param jiva bhuta mahabaho yaedam dhyate jagat. earth, water, fire, air, ether, mind, intelligence, and false ego. All together, these 8 comprise my separated material energies. Besides this inferior nature, Almighty Arjuna, there is a superior energy of mind which consists of the living entities who are struggling with the material nature and are sustaining the universe. The living entity tries to lord it over the material or physical elements, but both the physical elements and the spiritual spark are energies emanating from the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Therefore, the Lord says, Aham vai sarva bhutani. I am everything, just as heat and light emanate from fire. These 2 energies, the physical elements and the living entities, emanate from the Supreme Lord. Therefore, the Lord says, Aham vai sarva bhutani. I expand the physical and spiritual categories. Again, the Lord as a super soul guides the living entities who are conditioned by the physical atmosphere. Therefore, he is called Bhutatma Bhuta Bhavana. He gives the living entity the intelligence with which to improve his position so that he may return home back to Godhead. Or if he does not want to go back to Godhead, the Lord gives him the intelligence with which to improve his material position. This is confirmed by the Lord himself in Bhagavad Gita. Sarvasya chaham hridi sanivishto matasmriti jnanam abohanam cha. I am sitting in everyone's heart, and from me come remembrance, knowledge, and forgetfulness. From within, the Lord gives the living being the intelligence with which to work. Therefore, the previous verse said that after the Supreme Personality of Godhead endeavors, our endeavors begin. We cannot independently endeavor or act upon anything. Therefore, Lord is Bhuta Bhavana. Another specific feature of the knowledge given in this verse is that Shabda Brahma is also a form of the Supreme Lord. In his eternal blissful form, Lord Krishna is accepted by Arjuna as Param Brahma. A living entity in the conditioned stage accepts something illusory as substantial. This is called Maya or Avidya, ignorance. Therefore, according to the Vedic knowledge, one must become a devotee, and one must distinguish between Avidya and Vidya, which are elaborately explained in the Ishopanishad. When one is actually on the platform of Vidya, he can personally understand the personality of Godhead in his forms like those of Lord Rama, Lord Krishna, and Sankarshan. The Vedic knowledge is described as the breathing of the Supreme Lord, and activities begin on the basis of Vedic knowledge. And therefore, the Lord says that when he endeavors or breathes, the material universe is coming into existence and various activities gradually develop. The Lord says in Bhagavad Gita, Pranava Sarva Vedeshu, and the syllable Om in all the Vedic mantras. Vedic knowledge begins with the vibration of the transcendental sound Pranava, Omkara. The same transcendental sound is Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Abhinatvam Nama Namino. There's no difference between the holy name of the Lord and the Lord himself. So Prabhupada is again and again is making point here that the Shabda Brahma and the holy name of the Lord are not different from the Lord. So we have to come to that stage of not only theoretical understanding, but realizing the name of Krishna is not different from Krishna. Only then we can speak with the experience and the realization. And that comes through fasting chanting. Shabda Brahma. Sometimes they say Shabda Brahma is not or transcendental sound is not transmitted through a tape recording. So there is something in there that you cannot really capture Shabda Brahma through a tape, but still, Srila Prabhupada's, for example, tapes, when you listen, it might not be the same as being in personal presence of Srila Prabhupada, but the benefit is definitely there. Otherwise, what would be the point of Prabhupada writing all these books and recording all his classes? Definitely, we associate with the Prabhupada. It might be exactly on the same level as the personal association, but Shabda Brahma is there, at least partly, at least to some extent. Otherwise, one can be in Prabhupada's physical association, but still be so absent-minded and so non-receptive that he has no benefit from it, or very little benefit. So both the speaker and the listener, they're both important in this process of transmitting the transcendental sound vibration. One has to be receptive to it, not offensive, and then the speaker has to be on the spiritual platform, on the actual spiritual platform, in order to convey the Shabda Brahma. Okay, just let me see how long we still go. Okay, 52 is the last one. Okay, let us read. Krishna Chakriti Thakur is quite long here. I think I'll skip it. My voice is also very weak. So we go one more. 52. Loke vitatam atmanam, lokam chatmani santatham, ubayam cha maya vyaptam, maya chavo bhayam kritam. In this world of matter, which the conditioned souls accept as consisting of enjoyable resources, the conditioned soul expands, thinking that he is the enjoyer of the material world. Similarly, the material world expands in the living entity as a source of enjoyment. In this way, they both expand, but because they are my energies, they're both pervaded by me. As the Supreme Lord, I'm the cause of these effects, and one should know that both of them rest in me. So conditioned soul expands, wanting to enjoy, and then the material world consequently also expands within the living entity to give him an opportunity for enjoyment. Purport. The Mayavada philosophy sees everything as being equal in quality with the Supreme Personality of Godhead or the Supreme Brahman, and therefore sees everything as worshipable. This dangerous theory of Mayavada school has turned people in general towards atheism. On the strength of this theory, one thinks that he's God, but this is not a fact. As stated in Bhagavad Gita, Madhata Midan Sarvam Jagat Avyaktamurtina. The fact is that the entire cosmic manifestation is an expansion of the Supreme Lord's energies, which are manifested in the physical elements in the living entities. The living entities wrongly consider the physical elements to be resources meant for their enjoyment, and they think themselves to be the enjoyers. However, neither of them is independent. They're both energies of the Lord. The original cause of the material energy and the spiritual energy is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. However, although the expansion of the Lord's energies is the original cause, one should not think that the Lord himself has expanded in different ways. To condemn the theories of the Mayavadis, the Lord clearly says in Bhagavad Gita, Matstani, Tha bhutani na jahanteshva vastita. All beings and me, but I am not in them. Everything rests upon me, and everything is but an expansion of his energies. But this does not mean that everything is as worshipful as the Lord himself. The material expansion is temporary, but the Lord is not temporary. The living entities parts of the Lord, but they are not the Lord himself. The living entities in this material world are not inconceivable, but the Lord is. The theory that the Lord's energies being expansions of the Lord are as good as the Lord is mistaken. So, Lord, in one sense, the energy and the energetic are not different, but in the other sense, there is a difference. So Mayavadi philosophers, they completely deny this difference. And that's why their conceptions are mistaken or illusory. If you are everything, then the devotees should meditate on all living entities as the object of worship, and they would be the antaryami. In material world, the jiva has the status of enjoyer with hatam. The world is situated as the object of enjoyment for the jiva atmani. Both the jiva and the world are pervaded by me, the cause. Both exist as products in me, the adhisthana karana, caused by being the support. The rule of the sentence Smaret is in the verse 54. All beings are products of my Shaktis, are temporary and do not arise from my Swarup. Therefore, they should not be the object of meditation in worship. So we are not worshippers of everything and everybody. We are worshippers of the Supreme Lord. It's not now that because everybody is a part and parcel of the Lord. Whomever I meet on the street, I put him on an altar and do the puja. That's the mistaken conception. We worship the Lord and understand properly how others are related to the Lord as his parts and parcels. So Srila Prabhupada is using every opportunity to elaborately speak out against the Mayavada philosophy. So I think this is the last one, last shloka for this session. If you have anything to comment or add at the end, otherwise we will continue next time.
Can I ask a question?
Yes,
Prabhu. Oh,
yes, Prabhu. I think Prem Gosura Prabhu first. Just please speak closely to the mic, Prem
Oh,
Gosura,
okay.
because your voice is not very clear.
Mic close, yeah. Prabhuji, in this verse number 52, especially the translation, there appear to be two ideas or concepts. The conditioned soul expands and the material world expands in the living entity. How to understand this?
52, let's see again that. The conditioned soul expands. I would not take this in a literal sense that conditioned soul physically expands, but expands in terms of desiring to enjoy the material world. The material desires are unlimited. They expand unlimitedly. So in that sense, I would understand how the conditioned soul expands, trying to, to enjoy the material world by having unlimited material desires. So the material desires are the thing that is expanding, and reciprocally, material world expands within the living entity, again, not physically or literally, but expands an unlimited source of objects of enjoyment that are offered to the conditioned souls to enjoy. The material mind will offer unlimited ways to enjoy this world. So indeed, in that sense, material world expands. At least this is how I understand. So not physically, literally it expands. If anybody has any other explanation.
Doesn't say anything about this, right?
Sorry,
Does Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur explain this?
let me see. We didn't read this purport? Okay, let's see. If you everything, the body should meditate on all living entities. But you're not everything. It's not the same. That energetic and energy are not the same. The world is situation, object of enjoyment. Both the jiva and the world are pervaded by me. Both exist as products in me. No, he doesn't say anything about material world expanding and the jiva expanding, but just that they are pervaded by the Lord. Yes, sorry, it's not here. So yeah, I cannot say anything more since he's not commenting on it, and Prabhupada is also not explaining it. So I said how I understand it. Anybody else? Chatura Mataji, you had something also?
Hare Krishna Prabhu.
Hare Krishna.
Here in verse 28, it is that devotee is no need to practice yoga. I mean, that's Ashtanga yoga, yeah?
Which verse you said?
Verse 28.
28.
28.
Sorry, I'm not getting 58, 48, 28,
28. 28.
28. Oh,
Yeah.
okay, let me go back. But this we didn't do this time. We did it previous session because this session we started only from 41. Okay, so 28. Yeah, I don't know if I can find it immediately very soon. I can look on my phone quickly. Where is it? What does it say? Can you tell us? Can you read it? What does it say there?
Okay. In the purport, Srila Prabhupada said a devotee need not practice yoga, karma, or jnana to achieve a successful result.
Yes, he means mystic yoga, Ashtanga yoga, Jnana yoga. He definitely doesn't mean Bhakti yoga. Bhakti yoga is the devotional service. So there is no necessity for devotee to take help of any other processes that are not devotional service, that are not Bhakti, because Bhakti is supremely independent. So the Bhakti is more than enough to achieve the complete success. Srila Bhagavata Thakur, he mentions that in the beginning, a devotee might take some help of yoga or some other processes, but that's only in the beginning stage. If he needs to make his mind peaceful or something, that's acceptable if it's favorable for bhakti. But if it's not favorable for bhakti, then there is no necessity for such thing. So what is your doubt here?
Yeah, my doubt is that is it good for devotee to practice this Ashtanga yoga? Because you see some devotees, they are also yoga teacher.
Well, I think their engagement has nothing to do really with the self-realization. There is hardly anybody nowadays who is practicing this Hatha yoga with the idea of becoming self-realized. Especially devotees, they don't do this with this purpose. They do it maybe as a profession or for health reasons, because you want to maintain your body in a healthy condition, and that's fine. That's completely fine, because we want to maintain, we need a healthy body to engage in devotional service. So so why not to practice yoga? Some others will prefer going to gym, lifting weights. So why is yoga worse than going to the gym and lifting weights? Because you're not doing it with the idea that it will help you in self-realization. You are doing it with for some completely other purpose. You're doing it for the purpose either making money as your occupation, teaching yoga, or some devotees, they might also do it as some sort of bridge preaching. They kind of have idea of attracting people who are spiritually inclined for the yoga classes, and then gradually, involve them with the Krishna consciousness. That can be also the case. So it's not forbidden for devotee to practice yoga with this sort of understanding. The only what is forbidden is to think that by doing this asanas, pranayama, or meditation, that you will realize God. That's misunderstanding. But I don't think that many nowadays have this misunderstanding, especially devotees. There might be some gyanis here and there who try to achieve some realization by this sort of process, but it's very, very difficult and troublesome, and a process that takes long time. Plus, there are no proper teachers who can teach it properly nowadays. So basically nobody can achieve success doing this. He might achieve good health, maybe stabilize the mind, so it could be favorable for bhakti, in a sense that if that person becomes devotee later, it will be easier for him to control his mind. I know quite a few devotees who practice TM, which is a sort of transcendental meditations, sort of yogic meditation on a bij mantras that are found there in the Vedas. And they became devotees later. First they were with the Maharishi, and then they accepted Prabhupada. And even I heard that to one of them, even Maharishi himself, he said, "I cannot teach you anymore. You go to Bhaktivedanta Swami. He can teach you more." Something like that.
Yeah.
So
Very good. Okay.
okay.
Prabhu,
Yeah.
I have another question.
Okay.
Sometimes we also in these verses, some of the verses it is said to Keja Maharaj, he also reached the lotus feet of the Lord. And my question is that sometimes I want to meditate the lotus feet of the Lord Krishna, but I cannot find the meaning of those marks in the lotus feet of the Lord.
Oh, the
For example, the right foot has 11 marks and the left foot has 8 marks. So what is the meaning of these marks? But I cannot find the content where we can find this.
Yeah, I will. I think I have idea where these descriptions could be. So if I find, I'll send it to you.
Okay.
Yeah,
Very good.
it is very good. Yeah, that you can meditate, but you want to meditate with some understanding. That's also nice. Yeah, there are symbolical meanings of this of these symbols on the feet of the Lord. So I'll try. I'll try to find it for you and send it to you.
If we can know the meaning of this symbol, then then it will be easy for us to remember all
yeah.
the marks. Yeah.
There are meanings. I'll look for it and then I'll send it to you.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you. So I think
Small question in this relation.
yes, Prabhu.
What is the actual meaning, I mean, practical meaning of meditating on the lotus feet of the Lord? Is it like we should think of the symbols and what they mean? Or is it like something else? What is the actual meaning in real terms? Like, as explained by Acharyas or whatever.
It's a smaranam, you know, it's a process of smaranam, and it's a, you know, like a Shravanam and Kirtanam process. Smaranam is also process, and by doing smaranam, which is more difficult to do, but it's still possible to do if one has a mind enough peaceful. One makes advancement. He serves the Lord by this process of remembrance, and he gets purified also. The heart gets purified. You get attracted towards the Lord. So Smaranam and Kirtanam and Shravanam, they mutually support each other. It's explained in Bhagavatamrita actually. When Gop Kumar he goes to Tapaloka, everybody is completely immersed in a samadhi, in meditation on the Lord. And then the sage Pipalayana there, he glorifies this process of Smaranam. But then Sanatana Goswami argues that actually Kirtanam includes actually both Shravanam and Smaranam, and it's more easily performed than the Smaranam. So why not? We can use Smaranam. It's actually, you know, it's helpful. It's helpful to direct the mind towards the Lord. Sometimes we think that during Kirtanam, chanting or singing the Lord's holy name, the mind should be blank or empty, and that but generally, you know, if the mind is blankly, we are just absent-minded, and something else will come to the mind. So it's better that the Lord's form and Lord's pastimes come to the mind during the chanting than some material things. Better than remembering what will I eat, or you know, some mundane news. It's better to remember the Lord. Then it supports the chanting. When we remember some transcendental subject matter. So remembering, like meditation on the lotus feet, meditation on the form of the Lord is helpful and could be done. There is a description again in, I think again in Nectar of Devotion, Prabhupada gives an example of that Brahmana who, in his mind, he was meditating, doing the puja to the Lord, serving the deity in the mind. And he was so absorbed in that meditation, he was doing it for so many years, that at one point when he cooked the sweet rice was so hot that he physically actually he burned his finger. The meditation became so much a reality. So we can serve the Lord with the mind also, and the mind should be also engaged in the service of the Lord. This is the proper utilization of the mind. Otherwise, just mechanically chanting or mechanically hearing, being absent-minded, it doesn't lead anywhere.
Prabhuji, I also
Yeah.
understood one thing from some devotees, that actually meditating on the lotus feet of the Lord is something like equivalent to meditating on the Lord's instructions in your heart and trying to follow them.
Yeah, Prabhu, in
Yes.
Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 3, Chapter 28 and verse 20, Kapila Muni said one can fix the mind on each individual limb of the Lord.
Each individual,
So,
each individual
limb,
limb,
L-I-M-P, limb.
Okay.
Yes, so I try to meditate on the lotus feet of the Lord. I think my mind becomes more peaceful than before. So I think it is effective. So I ask for the meaning.
Did you already try? Did you already try, Mataji? You already tried to meditate?
Yeah. I already tried. Yeah. I think it's very effective when I chant the japa, and then I try to remember the lotus feet of the Lord. Each is a marks, and then on the right foot, and which mark. The first mark is the ballet corn, and then
Yeah.
second sticks, and then the lotus flowers, and then the elephant scout. And then I try to remember this, and find my mind is very peaceful, more peaceful than before I
That's
chant.
very good. That's very good. Nice realization. So you have a personal experience. So please,
Yeah.
please
Yeah.
continue. Yeah. If the result is good, why not to use it? You're combining Smaranam with the Kirtanam, and if you're becoming more absorbed in the holy name, that's desirable. That's very favorable. Please continue. Thank you for sharing with all of us. Maybe we should also utilize something of this. Sorry, Prangosana Prabhu, you wanted to say something, but I couldn't.
No, what I was saying is I
Yeah,
heard some
sorry.
devotees say that this meditating on the lotus feet of the Lord is equivalent to meditating on his instructions in your heart and trying to carry them out.
Okay, yeah, this is nice explanation. Thank you. Smaranam ki jai and Shravanam Kirtanam also ki jai. So thank you all very much. We'll stop now and I'll see you next Monday. Vancha kalpatrubhasya kripa sindhubheva patitanam pavanebhyo namo namah.
Thank you very much, Prabhu.
Thank you, Hare Krishna.
Krishna Prabhu.